Look, I think this thing could get pretty chalky. You got three teams that grade out better in net rating than 2023 UConn, or 2024 UConn, I meant. 36.43. The top of this sport is so ridiculously good. This candle smells good. Kind of want to hold it as I do my intro. So, are we gonna see any surprise teams in the Final Four? Probably not. It could be all 1 seeds and 2 seeds. It really could. It might be the optimal thing for your bracket to do so. But it's the madness. Random things happen. And the goal of this video is to talk about the teams that I actually think, if some madness happens, who could get there. There's not many of them. If you saw the thumbnail, Vanderbilt and UCLA are two teams that I may or may not be talking about in this video. But I wanted to quickly just hear the odds. Okay? You got 3 teams that are negative odds to make the Final Four. For good reason. They're all that good. Florida plus 165, Houston plus 250, Iowa State plus 240, plus 245. Illinois, the highest 3 seed, up at 310. Purdue, 360. UConn down there at 550, which is interesting. Definitely the lowest of all the 2 seeds. And then 3 seeds, of course, aforementioned Illinois, Michigan State plus 650, Gonzaga plus 500, and Virginia all the way down here at 11-1. So who could do it? Who could do it? I'm starting with Vanderbilt. You already know, if you follow me, how I feel about this team, but let me just really paint the picture of how Vanderbilt gets to the Final Four, okay? They beat a McNeese team that could cause some problems with, you throw Gary Dual at Tyler Taylor, Larry Johnson, and these guys are getting to the rim, making plays, and Vanderbilt doesn't shoot the ball well and they lose. I'm not worried about it. I think this team is too focused. They're going to outclass them, whatever. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is who's going to get to the Final Four. Who could get to the Final Four? I think Troy has a great shot in Nebraska, but if Vanderbilt plays Nebraska, I think that's a good matchup for them. They have the decision makers and the fact that everyone can pass it so well to generate a lot of open threes against a team that wants you to shoot a lot of threes. Look at teams are taking nearly half their shots against Nebraska from deep. Vanderbilt's more than comfortable with that. And then what does that set up? A matchup with Florida of a team that Vanderbilt just beat by 17 points. A Florida team that was kind of running through everyone. You lose a 2-point road game. You lose by 1 at Cameron. You lose by 4 at MSG against UConn. And then this weird game that I just like. Auburn had a terrible season. That was just like the most random game of the season. The most random result of the season. So we're just throwing that one out the window. Point is, Vanderbilt beat them. And not only that, they almost beat them twice. You see that little red chart? Look at Vandy in the final minute. So, if Vanderbilt takes care of McNeese, they beat a Nebraska team where they can hit a bunch of threes on, and they play a Florida team they already beat, we're in the Elite Eight. And anything can happen here. I think it's most likely you're playing a Houston or an Illinois against Houston. Tough matchup again for Tanner. Kind of like McNeese is, right? Of hounding you, trying to turn you over. Maybe they can do that, but I think Vandy can guard Houston. Because what does Houston do? They take a lot of mid-range shots. Average 2-point attempt distance, 8.2 feet. That is way down at the bottom. Lovely company with Mississippi Valley State. And I understand there's some good teams down here, of course, like, is my Facebook? Vanderbilt is. They'll take some mid-range shot. I love me that AKO Carrot K baby fade. Nickel can hit some shots there. Miles is be crafty with floaters. UCLA is a really good offensive team. Purdue, obviously TKR on the short roll. Braden Smith on pull-up jumpers. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but the point is, Vandy has looked the worst against teams like Arkansas and Texas, just that were just overwhelming with their size and athleticism on the interior in a way that Florida wasn't. But those were tough road spots in the SEC. So all this to say, and then Illinois, if Illinois played Vanderbilt, look, if we have Vanderbilt in our Final Four and there's a match against Illinois, we're happy with it. If Illinois makes the Elite Eight, that means that they're playing really good ball. The Aviciches are hitting threes, and which, by the way, has been a huge thing for Illinois. These two dudes have not been shooting the three ball well. And the whole reason when Wagler went off for 46 at Mackey, it was, we're going to guard Wagler on these switches, with Clough, because we don't want to throw two on the ball and get in rotation and let, guys like Avicic or Mirkovic or Jake Davis or Hummelgaus to get open catch and shoot threes when we move the ball there. But when the Avicics aren't knocking down threes, Illinois is not as good of a team. But yeah, all that to say, if we get this hypothetical matchup, Vandy's probably like a 3 or 4 point dog, and that would be a really tough matchup for them to beat Illinois. But I would feel more confident of them against Houston. So yeah, I don't love the Vanderbilt Illinois matchup, but I'm losing the plot. Point is, Vanderbilt is really a team that jumps out to me that has a path as a non-1 or 2 seed. They have a path. I'm not that afraid of McNeese. You get Troy or Nebraska in round 2, and then you play a Florida team that you've already proven that you can play with. And not only play with, outclass them last time and should have had them the other time. So that is why I'm obsessed with this team. They're 75 to 1 to win the title. I know I'm not telling anyone to gamble. I'm just using this as, probability reference. So yeah, they're 11 to 1 to make the Final Four. I think it's a good gamble. But let's stay focused. Who are other teams that I think could make the Final Four? The other sleeper I have is UCLA. So what's the path? UCF, well, first of all, are Donovan Dent and Tyler Bilodeau good? Yes. According to my sources, yes. Are they 100%? I think Dent is, or close. Bilodeau, I don't know, but he's close. These are hypothetical worlds, right? Here's the point of this video. If the Final Four is Duke, Arizona, Florida, and Kentucky, I failed you guys. Because in no world do I think Kentucky can make a Final Four. So if a random team doesn't make the Final Four, this is me covering my bases of, do I mention that team? So I have like 5 teams for you. Okay, so bear with me. Team number 2 is UCLA. Why? They have been unreal offensively over the past month of basketball. Having Dent, Sky Clark, and Trent Perry is so difficult to guard. The way they do some guard screen actions, create driving lanes, and the way Sky Clark and Trent Perry are knocking down the 3 ball, the way Donovan Dent is taking care of the basketball, getting to the rim, setting up his teammates, the way Bilodeau spaces the floor, the way Xavier Booker spaces the floor, he's knocking down shots. High quality role players in Eric Freeney and Brandon Williams. This game is not out of my head, by the way. Arizona, if you watch my other video, is my champion pick. UCLA played them better than most teams. And this is before they were even playing their best basketball. And it's because UCLA is a half-court team that takes care of the ball. And defensively, they've gotten much better lately. They're playing much more connected. They're more bought in. They're playing harder. I can just see it. Because they see the vision, and they started to win. This Donovan Dent buzzer really changed the trajectory of the season, I think, a bit. And yeah, I mean, UCF's had a good season. I'm just not that scared of it. They got to keep like Stillwell off the glass. UCF's athletic. It's not going to be an easy game, but I think Purdue's going to win. And let's just remember, 7 seed Shabazz Napier when UConn won the title that year, they needed Amita Brima to knock down 2 free throws. This is why you guys got to sub to the channel. Everything is in my brain that's ever happened since I started following the sport, which was I was a kid. Anyways, that was 2013. I lied. 2014. First round, they needed Amita Brima to knock down 2 free throws to send that game to overtime. 61% free throw shooter. Or no, he was a freshman at the time. 57% free throw shooter at the time. Freshman from Ghana, Amita Brahma, had to knock down 2 free throws for them to get to St. Joe's to overtime round 1. Okay? Variance, randomness. That's why we love the tournament. All that to say, what a transition to UConn. Should UConn get by Furman? Do I think UCLA can play with UConn? Yes. I absolutely do. Terrace Reed will get his on the inside. Just like Osterkloff had a bunch of offensive rebounds against him, the way that UCLA has been killed a little bit on the inside, especially with a not 100% build-out. But in this world, Tyler Bilodeau is fully healthy. And they're spacing out UConn. And they're scoring the rock. And UConn's a very good defensive team. They do a great job of, forcing you to do, exploiting your weakness or making you do the thing that you least want to do offensively. But UCLA is comfortable taking mid-range shots, is comfortable relying on Dent to create and Bilodeau to ISO in the low post, mid post. Like Houston, UCLA takes a lot of those mids, like I said. But they're a really good shooting team. And I just see so many comparisons with this UCLA team to this UCLA team. Top 10-ish offense, top 50-ish defense that plays up because this man, Mick Cronin, is a great defensive coach. A good three-point shooting team that takes care of the ball, that played in the half court. And what did they do? Squeak by in the first 4 against Michigan State. Handle BYU. You catch a break. Sometimes you catch a break. Texas loses to Avalon Christian. You catch a break. You hang on, beat Alabama in overtime in a game where Alabama couldn't make a free throw. It was awesome. I remember that game. Shout out Herb Jones. Shout out Jaden Shackelford. I like Jaden Shackelford. Then you beat Michigan. Michigan couldn't score. Michigan was big favorites in this game. UCLA had 4 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. My face is blocking it, but UCLA had 4 points in the first quarter of the game. Anyways, Michigan couldn't hit a shot. It was awesome. You get the point. And they get knocked down the Jalen Suggs buzzer beater. But, yeah, I think the matchup with UConn is like, I think UConn can make the Final Four. I think UConn can cut down the net still. But this is a gettable game for UCLA. And guess who you play if you beat them? Most likely Michigan State. And what did UCLA just do? Beat Michigan State on a neutral. Where Bilodeau left early. So, then where are you at? You're in the Elite Eight. It's a good call. Can I just say that? If UCLA or Vanderbilt or the other 3 teams I tell you make the Elite Eight, it was a good call. Like if you put 6th seeded Clemson in 2024 in your Final Four, they make the Elite Eight, they're up on Alabama in the second half and they lose, you tip your cap and you go to sleep happy because you picked a great sleeper. Or if you had 11 seed NC State, which you must have had to have been a little crazy to do. Unless you just, it was DJ Burns. That team had some clear magic to them. You get the point once again. Like, I'm trying to find the random team. Okay? And we get random teams. Last year was all 1 seeds, but who would have counted as like a viable sleeper pick last year? Arkansas. Because Arkansas blew it to Texas Tech. They would have been in the Elite Eight as a 10 seed. If you had Arkansas in your Final Four, that was a great pick. But yeah, if you had a Florida Atlantic makes the Final Four, they catch the break with Fairleigh Dickinson. There's so much randomness to it. I don't mean to talk myself in circles. All I'm saying is, if you pick a team to make the Final Four who's a sleeper and they make the Elite Eight, you're happy. So am I gonna come up here and convince you how UCLA is gonna beat Duke? I'm not gonna waste my time because maybe they don't play Duke. That's what I waste my time with the Vandy, Illinois thing. I think UCLA has a viable path to the Elite Eight, and once they're in the Elite Eight, you got a chance. Okay, so UCLA is team number 2. Team number 3. Any guesses from the crowd? Texas Tech. Okay, Texas Tech. Why? Well, let's check the odds real quick. Back to this. UCLA, by the way, is 19-1 to make the Final Four, which is better odds than a 4 seed in Alabama. Shout out Aiden Holloway. You will be dearly missed. You will be dearly missed, Aiden Holloway. I hope everything is good. What was I talking about? Okay, Texas Tech. Where's Texas Tech's Final Four odds? They're over here at 17-1. I think UCLA. I'm sorry. I'm talking about Texas Tech now. It's very late at night, by the way. But I'm getting this content out for you guys. I still think it's crazy that I can just talk unfiltered and people are watching it. The fact that so many people watched the last one, it's so dope. Thank you. Subscribe and like if you haven't. Back to the video. Texas Tech. Why? Why do I think they can make the Final Four? Well, I think they could have won the national championship with Toppin. Without him, I've been very impressed with how they've competed. There have been some low points where they've looked a little outmatched, like the second half of that BYU game. A incredibly difficult place to play against a desperate BYU team at that point in time. You know, had lost 3 straight, 4 or 5. And in the second half, BYU really turned up. Unreal performances from Rob Wright and AJ. Kadeem Boop was fantastic on Christian Anderson. Kadeem Boop and TCU, and Dame Sarr for Duke when he played in this game. Christian went for 27, but when Dame Sarr was in there, he did a good job. He only played 9 minutes because he had 4 fouls. All that to say, this dude is so good. Like, so good. There is a world where he is a better pro than Kingston Flemings, Michael Brown. I don't know if I can say Acuff because Acuff's been so good lately, but Acuff, Wagler, there's a world where he's the best point guard at the next level in college right now. He's that good of a shooter and pick and roll operator, and I can't say enough good things about him. So, yeah, he struggled against Iowa State. He fell on the LAD floor. That's a home game for Iowa State, basically, in St. Louis. And they had just won at Iowa State, and I was at that game, and I was so impressed by what Texas Tech did. And there are 2 duos in college basketball. I tweeted this out, where both players hit 100 threes this year. Texas Tech and South Florida. South Florida's did it, and those guys, Pinion and Enos, shot 38 and 37% from 3 this year. Atwell is shooting 45% from 3 on incredibly high volume. Christian Anderson is shooting 43% on incredibly high shot volume and difficulty. Off the bounce, you know, going over a screen, throwing a dribble out, pulling up, knocking it down. Deep threes. Having the shot making and decision making out of the pick and roll of Christian Anderson, Donovan Atwell off the ball as outside of Momcilovic, maybe the second best shooter in the country. Bomboye, who is an awesome rim protector and defender. Tyree Bryan, who's came along, and you know you're not going to see it if you click on his page, but Tyree Bryan is a good player. Luwan Watt's booty ball in certain matchups will work very well. He's gotten less minutes lately, but Luwan Watt's booty ball can work very well, where he's just backing you down. Boom, boom, boom. I want to show you. Boom, boom. Bucket. Or he's shooting 2. Or he's spraying to Atwell. Or Jalen Petty, who's like a little pogo stick, who just jumps up and hits threes and plays super hard. And then Josiah Mosley, who gives them an element on the short roll and is good defensively. 6'8" forward. And then Horner, a Quintok, if that's how you say it right, give you some spot minutes. Anyways, yeah, would it be nice to have the All-American team? It would. But there's a special energy in the air with Grant McCasland. This comeback against Arkansas was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, right? Different team, I get it, but the comeback against Duke was there in person. I'm biased maybe a little bit because I saw them beat Duke in person, and the other game I went to in person, they won at Iowa State. Sure, they've lost 3 since then, but a TCU team with extreme pressure defense coming off a little bit of the high of that, right? Really tough matchup. BYU, like I said, Texas Tech was up 10 in that game and then missed some shot. Atwell missed a few open threes, which you never see, and they let that slip away. But they came back. They rallied back when they fell down. Can we see the chart? You see that spike? Like, they almost got back in there. Whoa, right here, 59.1. Anyways, I just still believe in them. They're not as good without Toppin, but the 3-point shooting, the belief they have, the comebacks I've seen from that BYU game. What other game do they have a massive comeback? Houston. Like, whenever adversity is on them, last year against Houston, they were the only team to win at Houston, like, forever. And this is a game that McCasland got tossed early, Toppin got tossed early. And they just do magic, okay? So, when I look at this draw, Akron's a super good mid-major, one of my favorites in the tournament. But Texas Tech's 8-point favorite in this game. Like, they're still the better team. I think they're going to win. Alabama's vulnerable without Aiden Holloway. They can't defend. This would be a very exciting, high high possession game, but Alabama doesn't really turn you over at all, and Texas Tech, I think, can keep them off the offensive glass. I would take them to the Sweet 16. And in the Sweet 16, what could happen? This could happen. Shout out Pierre on Teed Up out tomorrow. He made the pitch for Georgia. Good athletes, super fast paced, can light it up from deep. They could get hot and beat Michigan. Could totally happen. And even if we get this, on paper, it's a nightmare. Nightmare for Texas Tech. Nightmare. But crazier things have happened. And they're so good offensively, and I still think maybe Yaxel's on Christian Anderson. It's just what Kadeem Boop did, what Dame Sar did, and it's really hard for him to get free, and it's on pay to create. Bomboye can't play booty ball against Adai. This would be very hard. They were probably 12-point underdogs in this game. But this could happen, and all of a sudden, Texas Tech in the Final Four, we're live. So, and then down here, maybe you play an Iowa State team you won on the road at, revenge. Maybe you play Virginia. Maybe you play Tennessee. That's the world where Texas Tech makes the Final Four. Who's still with me? I know this video is long. This is supposed to be a 10-minute video. I'm not good at being concise. I'll be quicker on the last couple. The next one, those are my top three. So I'll keep the other ones. Click Virginia. And here's why. I was like kind of not. Well, Virginia has by far the worst odds to make the Final Four of the 3 seeds. 11-1, below St. John's, Kansas, Arkansas. The main thing with Virginia, to be honest, is the draw. Tennessee, Iowa State, Michigan, I think, is the most gettable 1-2 combination. I guess 6-2. But no, that would be North Carolina. Anyways, Michigan, Iowa State, I think, are within Virginia's. I think Virginia could beat those teams. Why? I know they're not a super deep sleeper. They're a 3 seed, but it's still a team that, like, what's the knock on Virginia? The reason I am, like, new to the Virginia Final Four wave as of a few hours ago, I just was thinking about it and watching film on them and said, hold up. They're really good. And what I like about Virginia is, sure, they weren't really tested this season. Look at how many top 25 opponents. You don't see any. They played Louisville at Louisville without Michael. They played Duke twice. Got crushed against full-strength Duke. And at Cameron, of course. And then played a really good game in the ACC tournament. And you saw what Onyenso did to Cam Boozer. 9 blocks. You only get 10 minutes out of Jakari White. It was tough for him to guard in that game, but this is the type of dude that can hit 7 threes in a game. You know how special it is to have a guy off your bench who can come hit 7 threes in a game? What do you have? He had a game where he went 7 for 7 from deep against Dayton on a neutral. Electric shot creator from deep. And he's a guy that you don't even need sometimes. Devin Tillis, been around the block. Not really around the block. 3 years at UC Irvine, but vet, tough, wing, defender. Can knock down open shots. Chance Mallory, freshman bulldog point guard. Create, get to the rim, be scrappy, play make. Grunlow, freshman from Germany, can step out and shoot it, can block shots, sound defensively. DeRitter, your go-to scorer, 23-year-old freshman, strong, finishes. Downhall, guard, been around the block, playmaker, shooter. Malik Thomas, guard, been around the block. Look how old this team is. Score. Sam Lewis, think he's an NBA player. Connective wing. Great two-way player. Good handle. Good passer. Good shooter. Really good top 9. Very balanced. A lot of players. And they're kind of a mystery box. They're 29-5. If I'm not mistaken, Virginia, when they were like, why am I forgetting how to check history? Like, in the past, 3 loss Virginia, 4 loss Virginia is like a 1 or a 2 seed. They were a 1 seed here with 8 losses, It's a different ACC. But the point is, this is a 5-loss team. The strength of schedule hasn't been as high. That's why they're a 3 seed, like no crap. But we just saw them play Duke super well. And we haven't seen them against another elite team. And what have they done to all these other teams? They beat them. Handle Miami. Handle State. Virginia Tech, rivalry game. Sure, they played some people closer than you'd like to see, Wake or Boston College, Notre Dame takes you double overtime. They won the games. Super balanced team. And I look at the path against Iowa State, against high pressure defense. You got to be able to, have short roll playmakers. You got to be able to be tough. You got to be able to knock down catch and shoot threes. It's nice to have a lot of bodies so you don't get worn down. You got to be good on the glass. Virginia can do all those things. You got to be able to pass out of doubles if you play through the post with DeRitter. Virginia can do all those things. I think Virginia would beat Iowa State. And then maybe you don't play Michigan if you're Virginia. And if you do, you got bodies in the front court. You have Onyenso. You have Grunlow. You have DeRitter. You have an old team. And I've shared my concerns about Michigan. I think I have Michigan in my Final Four in my bracket right now. I might change it to Virginia. I think they're a really, really good team. And they're a Final Four sleeper. 11-1. That's the pitch on Virginia. One more team. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I don't know who I'm going to say. Let me just plant some seeds. Those are the four I'm going to take credit for. If it's anything I say after this, I can't take credit. Okay? There's some weird things that could happen with TCU. When TCU is hot and they're on and they're defending well, they can beat anyone. We've seen them beat Florida, beat Iowa State, should have beat Kansas, beat Texas Tech on the road. High ceiling team. If things are clicking offensively, I could see them taking down Duke, playing a Kansas team they should have won at Allen Fieldhouse against. And then here you are playing UConn, all those athletes, defenders, and you're in rhythm then. It's an idea. That's probably my craziest idea. Does Gonzaga count? If Braden Huff comes back, I could see a world where they can beat Purdue. But then can I see them then beating Arizona? I don't think so. And that's what's tough about the West region. Because Wisconsin or Arkansas, if Wisconsin was where Vanderbilt was, I could have talked myself into a Cinderella run. If Arkansas was where Alabama was, I could have talked myself into Arkansas Final Four like that. I just don't think they can beat Arizona. Excuse me. I think Wisconsin's going to be hard to get by. And I think Hawaii could give them a scare. So to go Hawaii, then Wisconsin, then Arizona, and then Purdue, I think is just a lot to ask, even if Acuff is God mode. And Acuff has been God mode. Like, I'm one of the people who's a little slow to putting him higher on my NBA draft boards. And to Arkansas fans, and to Acuff, and to anyone who cares, I'm sorry. Because he is insane. But yeah, that's another idea. Arkansas. I had an idea for Mizzou earlier. I don't like the draw. I think Miami's a really tough matchup for them. I think Mizzou can win that. But then to beat Purdue, no, they can't do that. I think that's it, guys. I don't think I have anyone else. I do think it's going to be chalky. It could easily be all one seeds. It could. And according to the fortune tellers, these three teams are more likely to make the Final Four than not. And it's probably going to be four of these five teams. Florida or Houston. Probably. But if it's not, and I'm not counting the two, I'm not counting Iowa State, Purdue, UConn. The reason they don't count for this video because they're 2 seeds. Even Illinois doesn't count because of where their odds are. I would count Michigan State or Gonzaga as sleepers. Kansas I didn't mention because could Kansas? Yes. The familiarity with Duke. I'm not super high on St. John's. They have Darren. They have Bill Self. They beat Arizona. They've played good team stuff. I just don't like the vibes well enough in Kansas. I don't like the depth of Elmarko and Jamari in there. Bryson Tiller's bad defensively. He hasn't been shooting it as well. Out on Kansas making a deep run. St. John's, could they bully their way? Could they just guard Duke incredibly well? Maybe. If they get by Kansas and get by Northern Iowa and then rematch UConn, they'd be licking their lips. St. John's, Michigan State would be a fun matchup, but I don't think we're going to get that. Anyways, I'm really tired. I'm going to go to bed. This was a way longer video than I was planning, but I hope my yap was interesting. Let me know in the comments if you have a different Final Four sleeper. And yeah, Texas Tech, Virginia, Vanderbilt, UCLA. Peace.